In this video, we will take a look at the Blur, Sharpen, and Smudge tools. And you will find these tools underneath the Gradient tool, and they're all three grouped together. They don't have a shortcut key, so you'll have to select these individually here. We have the Blur tool, the Sharpen tool, and the Smudge tool. The Blur tool does exactly what it sounds like it's going to do. It will blur out a piece of the image for you based on a brush. So you can use any brush here, and at the top you can see we have the brush settings. You can open up the brushes panel. We can change the blending mode, and then we have a strength setting of how strong we want the blur to happen, and if we want to sample all layers and our tablet settings. So if we just click on a piece of this image, I'll make this a little bigger so hopefully it's a little easier to see. If I start going over this side of the beard and painting, you'll see that it starts blurring out that piece of the image together. So this is great for working with anything you need blurred. It could be blurring text for a photo, or it can be just creating any type of dynamic blurring effect like you see here. So here you can see the difference in the two. This side has the nice sharp image, and then on the left hand we have the blurred image. Again, you can crank up that strength, so if you have it stronger, it's going to blur that out stronger and quicker, versus having a very low tolerance like say 10% where it doesn't blur as much. So depending on what you need, you can adjust that strength there. The other tool that we're going to look at is the Sharpen tool. This has the reverse effect. You can see we have the same settings at the top. You can do a strength, and it's based on a brush, and this is going to sharpen up the image, so it's actually going to make the pixels sharper. So I'm going to start clicking here and painting in this piece of the beard, and this is probably a lot more than you would ever want to do, but just for an example, you can see how it's sharpening up those pixels for you and editing the photo in that manner. Again, I probably wouldn't use such a high strength. I would probably start off with a 20 or something like that, and it'll build up for you over as you begin working. So I would do a light sharpen and just kind of sharpen up the pieces that we want here and work on it that way. But it's going to do the opposite of the blur effect. Let's pull up the history and go ahead and clear all that out. Okay. So we're back to the original image here. We'll change that back to 50%. And then the last tool is the Smudge tool. And you can imagine this tool if you dropped a little pigment of paint on a sheet of paper and then took your finger and just smudged across it. That's basically what this tool is going to do. Now, you might have to give it some time. Don't click a lot in here, because as you use this tool, it has to process and it can slow down Photoshop a little bit. So if you start smudging a whole lot or don't see changes happening, just give it a moment and let it process. So again, you can change the brush settings, the blending mode, and the strength, same at the top. You can also turn on this finger painting setting, which will give you a different type of look. But we'll just turn on, and this time maybe we'll go across the cheek, and as I begin clicking and dragging, you can see how I've smudged that image across there. Again, if I click a bunch of times, I hit it 3 times, you can see it takes a while for it to process, so you got to be really careful not to do that. So this applies kind of a blur effect too, so you can smudge and kind of blur at the same time, which might be something you want to do, or you can just use it to smudge across colors or a part of your image if you want to. So it creates a really cool effect, and you might find some uses for that. So those are the 3 tools: the Blur tool, the Sharpen tool, and the Smudge tool. They all help just kind of changing the way that the image looks, and hopefully you can find a use for them in your projects also.